Hallo Freunde und willkommen. I'm not sure why I started this one off in German because we are not talking about Germany today. I decided to take a little trip to the northwest to a beautiful little country called Scotland. Now, if you didn't know, I have a very strong background, that's not the right word, ancestral history in Scotland. A lot of my ancestors come from Scotland. I actually still have family that I have never met in Scotland. We are part of the clan Wardlaw, and if you didn't know or don't know much about Scotland and the name Wardlaw, there is Sir Henry Wardlaw, who started the first university in Scotland. We are direct descendants of Mary, Queen of Scots, which I suppose isn't all that intriguing because I'm sure there's a lot of descendants of Mary, Queen of Scots. But nonetheless, I find it fascinating. Scotland is one of those places where I want to go so bad, just for the beauty of the landscape. I love the Scottish accent, and my mom and grandma actually got the pleasure of going to a clan reunion in Scotland a number of years ago, and so they got to meet our family. And so today I just wanted to kind of do a little something a little more fun, a little more upbeat, not so political, not so polarizing. So today we are visiting Scotland, and we are going to check out 10 unknown facts about Scotland. So let's get into it.
Ten unknown facts about Scotland. An integral part of the United Kingdom, Scotland is a country that is shy on the world stage despite its long history. This nearly 12,000-year-old nation is indeed one of the most influential and decisive
12,000-year-old country, and people want to talk all high and mighty about the United States history of, a couple hundred years.
in the history of the Anglo-Saxon civilization, and for that alone, it deserves more attention. But despite the kilts, Scotland has a much richer culture than you might think, and a heritage that is just waiting to be discovered. In this video, let's head to Scotland and learn more about this country with 10 facts you probably don't know. Obviously, if you've clicked on this video, you're excited to watch it. Well, you know what we have to do before we start. Put up a blue thumb and subscribe to our Four Corners Facts channel. It's the best way to support us. Also, tell us in the comments what kind of video you'd like to see on the channel in the future. We read all the comments and we'll take notes. Now, without further ado, let's get to the first fact. Number 1. The oldest flag. We've already talked about it in our video about Austria, saying that it's one of the countries with the oldest flags in the world. But did you know that Austria has been overtaken by Scotland? Indeed, the Scottish flag is even older, since it dates back to the year 1000 against the year 12,000 for Austria, which you knew if you followed our video series. This flag is a white cross on a blue background, so it is one of the oldest flags still used in the world. Its meaning has a religious origin. The cross represents the cross of St. Andrew, a crucified apostle from Christian belief. The blue background represents the night sky because that's when the saint was crucified. This symbolism shows without any doubt the Christian anchoring in the Scottish culture. And you should know that in Scotland it is not the only flag that is oldest, but the oldest village in Great Britain is also located on Scottish land, and it dates back more than 5,000 years.
Good grief.
Number 2. Edinburgh, the capital. The capital of Scotland, Edinburgh, is not only pleasant as a city, but it is also a reflection of its country. That is to say, it is full of interesting facts, and it contains a very rich history. Competing with the famous Rome, the city of Edinburgh was originally built on 7 hills. The city has more than 4,500 UNESCO World Heritage buildings, That's a colossal number,
Wow.
and it's a record for Scotland, as no other city in the world has so many listed cultural
4,000.
elements. These buildings will never be destroyed or modified, because once listed it is forbidden to make any alteration. What is quite atypical with the Scottish capital is that tourists can enjoy the historical monuments between two districts, such as the Palace of Holyrood or the Scott Monument, for example. The city has nevertheless been arranged to leave the historic site separate from the urban space, named respectively Old Town and New Town. This does not prevent Edinburgh Castle from overlooking the city of the Royal Mile, which was the first place in the world to host the first great buildings of the 17th century.
The architecture alone is something that, if nothing else, go for the architecture. That's what I love so much about Germany and any other city I've been to, Paris. The architecture is, I mean, I really don't have any words to describe the architecture. I always find myself standing in front of these cathedrals and like at the Gothic section of Frankfurt in Germany. And just thinking back to the time when they were built and the amount of work that went into it, and some of those palaces took generations to finish. You know, it's just unbelievable the amount of detail that goes into them, how big they are, the ornate decorations. Architecture, just I love it so much. So that's one thing that I would be very excited to see in Scotland, especially over 4,000 protected buildings in Edinburgh. It's crazy.
Number 3. Banned pets. Behind this misleading title, there is a real cause defended by the government of Scotland. Some explanations are necessary. Everywhere in the world, some breeds of pets have genetic mutations, ending up being bred for the simple and futile reason of aesthetics. Nice nose, small legs, different eyes. The problem behind all this is that these genetic mutations, although they please the buyers, are sometimes very painful health problems for the animals concerned.
Yep.
And very little veterinary care can compensate for this. It is thus in an approach of animal defense that Scotland prohibits the breeding of these breeds of pets. Number 4.
Now that makes sense. I was afraid they were going to go into the typical, you can't have pit bulls or you can't have Rottweilers or whatever, but to know that they're banned because it's unhealthy for the dog or the animal or unfair, inhumane. I hate it when people want to breed a certain way just to get the certain look of their pet, but then the pet grows up with all sorts of medical issues because that's not the way it was meant to be. You know, that's not the way it was supposed to end up like. So I'm glad that they aren't banning strictly on the stereotypical characteristics of animals, but trying to look out for the animals themselves. And if you don't have the vet care that can treat them, which you can't because it's just a genetic thing, then, you know, how are you supposed to help them?
4. An extremely rare population.
Redheads.
Of all the possible natural hair colors, redheads represent only 1 to 2% of the world's population. Yet in Scotland, about 13% of the
Wow.
population has such hair, and naturally, of course. That's a big chunk of the world's redheaded population, and that's
That's a lot
just
of
in
red
Scotland. In fact, the reason that everyone has such a shade is because it's in the gene pool. Researchers have studied the issue and concluded with a rather fascinating estimate, which would explain the rate of red hair in the country. If there is so much compared to the rest of the world, it is because the genes of the Scottish population present the possibility to each family to give birth to a redheaded child. It's a matter of genes. And if the Scots have this gene linked to the color red, it is because the latter, being linked to a very pale skin, would be more efficient in order to synthesize vitamin D, thanks to the absorption of the sun's rays. It could therefore be a natural mechanism, Scotland being a geographical area where clouds are very present, which would serve to produce vitamins by perceiving the sun's rays despite a thick cloudy film. Practical, isn't it? Number 5.
Now that's quite interesting. I never thought of it like that, but it makes perfect sense that if you live in an area where it gets a lot of cloud cover and not a whole lot of open sun, you know, through the ages, you have grown to and developed into people that can absorb more of the sun, more of the vitamin D, and so pale skin, red hair, just a natural progression of things. That's never even would have considered that a possibility, but very interesting.
5. The Scottish national animal. If in France the rooster is their national animal, can look ridiculous, in Scotland the animal does not even exist. It's the unicorn, and therefore an imaginary animal, purely mythical.
That's funny.
In Celtic beliefs and culture, the unicorn is the symbol of innocence, purity, healing, joy, and life. It is also an animal that wants to be sovereign because it would rather die than live as a slave. It is considered that the unicorn, this horse adorned with a horn on its forehead, has the ability to heal the sick, and as we said earlier with the symbol of healing, nowadays unicorns are portrayed as cute and adorable creatures, of which there are many accessories of all kinds, ranging from stuffed animals to caps. But in the past, in Celtic culture, the unicorn was fearsome and very intimidating. Depictions of the unicorn can be seen in artwork dating back to the Renaissance. So the Scottish people actually have a lot of reasons to choose this fierce animal to represent their nation.
When all else fails, create your own national animal. It's kind of funny. But based on what he said on what it stands for, it makes perfect sense.
Number 6. Scotland is home to many islands. Scotland's landscapes are very diverse, and the islands found in the country are surely among the most breathtaking. From the most famous, Skye, Man, Mull, Arran, to the least known such as Barra or Staffa, the islands are mainly located in 4 archipelagos: Shetland, Orkney, the Inner Hebrides, and the Outer Hebrides. There are 790 of them in total, but they're not all inhabited. Only about 100 of these islands in Scotland have a year-round inhabitant. The most popular islands are the Shetland and Orkney Islands, which usually receive several thousand tourists. On the other hand, the less frequented island is only about 10 people a year.
Over 700 islands. Wow. I'd never even considered islands around Scotland. That's amazing. And that landscape is to die for. Oh my God. It's kind of like, well, Ireland as well. We have family in Ireland. And I mean, granted, it's cloudy a lot, probably rains a lot. But man, the landscape just...
Number 7. The sports of Scotland. Well, for this 7th fact, we'll talk about something new. Sports in Scotland are really something. From tree trunk throwing to sheep stomach throwing, Scottish culture has its share of incomprehensible things. Of course, the most of these practices are not up to date anymore, but it's not a bad thing because it gave the chance of one of the Scottish sports to become famous: golf. At the same time, there is no lack of space, grass, or water in the country, and for good reason, there are more than 550 courses. Among them is the Old Course at St. Andrews, the oldest golf course in the world, obviously modified in the meantime, but still dating back to 1574. Number 8.
The oldest golf course in the world. I didn't know that. I knew about St. Andrews, but over 500 golf courses. I don't golf. I've never been in. I mean, I've golfed in the past just for fun, but it's not one of those things where I have to visit every golf course wherever I go. But it would be kind of cool to go see it at least, you know, just to be there. But I did know that golf was a big Scottish. That's where it started.
8. Wedding traditions. As you can see, in Scotland there are many strange traditions, and weddings are no exception. For example, it's not uncommon for the bride and groom to go through a rather particular rite of passage, which consists of being smeared with flour, mixed with mud and soot, which is called blackening. It's kind of like a bachelor party. Once the groom has been smeared with this mixture, he's taken through the city with his friends, who will try to make him as uncomfortable as possible. And this tradition is not exclusive to the men, as it's also done to the bride. And it's not the only one of its kind we've chosen to talk about, as it's the most common. But you'd be surprised what the Scots are willing to do to celebrate the sacred union of marriage. Number 9. Soothing lights. Here's a very rare social fact studied in Scotland, and it's all to the good of the country's reputation. The city of Glasgow opted for the color blue to illuminate its streets, the initial goal being to make the city more attractive and aesthetic. But following this, the media discovered something very interesting. Crime and suicides have decreased in the city. Psychologists provided their own analysis of these statistics, which concluded with a rather logical finding. According to them, this phenomenon of appeasement is observed because the color blue is often associated with the police. People would also be more vigilant when they move in streets with unusual lighting. This discovery has been welcomed overseas, as the Japanese, intrigued by this phenomenon, have ended up exporting the concept of blue lights to certain cities within their own country. And at number 2...
I wouldn't have thought of it like that, associating that with the police. I thought maybe more of a calming effect, like, blue light, cool colors tend to have an effect over you to calm you down, be soothing, whereas bright, vivid colors like red invoke maybe angst or, more energy. So interesting to know that they associated that with the police and not the actual color being soothing to the people.
10. Scotland's unexpected wildlife. Over time, a multitude of different animal species have made their home in Scotland, and not just on the Highland Islands, to name one. In 1838, for example, an elephant took up residence in Edinburgh Castle. Of course, it was not a native to Scotland. It had been brought there from Sri Lanka as a souvenir by Scottish soldiers who were once on a mission there. Also, Edinburgh Zoo is...
Okay. I know about souvenirs, bringing souvenirs back from foreign places. Usually that's a knife, little trinkets. Somebody brought an elephant back as a souvenir. Hey, look what I got. Brought a souvenir from Sri Lanka. It's an elephant.
Is home to the largest penguin pond in Europe. By the way, it is also where the only high-ranking penguin in the world lives. It has been elevated to the rank of knight. This is another strange but amusing anecdote. But there is plenty to be interested in with the natural fauna as well. On the northeast coast of the country, there are magnificent aquatic species. You can meet Tursiops dolphins or even basking sharks. Well, it's hard not to see Scotland under another light after such discoveries. Which fact presented in this video has impressed you the most? Tell us in the comments. If you like this content and want more, let us know by putting as many likes as possible and by subscribing to Four Corners Facts channel. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you back on the channel soon.
Well, that was fun. That was interesting. I didn't know a lot of those facts about Scotland. Makes me want to go there and visit even more. What did you think? Did you know, obviously, if you're Scottish, you don't count in, well, you do count, okay? Everybody counts, but if you're not from Scotland and you don't know much about Scotland, which one surprised you the most, or do you have any other facts about Scotland or interesting tidbits that you could share? Leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. That's definitely on the very short list of places for me to visit, is to go back to Scotland. I want to do a little bit more research on where exactly we come from in Scotland, where the Wardlaws are. I know that there's a Wardlaw Castle, so I can't wait to go to go visit Scotland. And if there's anybody out there that's watching this that happen to live in Scotland, where are some of the places that you recommend the most for any type of, when a visitor goes to Scotland, where would you send them to get an authentic Scottish feel? You can go to all these touristy places in every city, but I always feel like if you really want to experience what the country's really like, you have to go off the beaten path and don't visit these massive tourist places. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and a little bit different, a little bit more upbeat today, which is good. Sorry this video is out a little bit late. I had some difficulties yesterday, but hope you enjoyed, and until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye. Oh, and I did find a little piece of tartan. I believe tartan is the word. But this is our clan colors. My wife's not too thrilled about it because she's not a big fan of purple. I love it. I think it's great. So I have this small little sample piece, but then I have a bigger chunk of fabric with the same pattern on it. I believe it might be a little bit different shade of color. But yeah, this is our clan tartan, the Wardlaw. So if you happen to be part of the Wardlaw clan, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to get in touch. I'm not saying that means we're blood relatives, but it would be kind of cool to know who's out there that's part of the clan Wardlaw. So thank you.